Hello, I'm Dr. Vanita Rattan and this channel is dedicated to skincare for skin of colour. As you know, I'm a doctor, but I'm also a cosmetic formulator specifically for skin of colour. Now, with us, we have to be a little bit more careful because our melanocytes are larger, they are easier to trigger. As you know, one scratch, one bite or one burn, and we hyperpigment. So we just have to be a lot more careful with our skin. I don't want any inflammation. I think that's one of the reasons I tend to cause a little bit of controversy is because I think I ask just a different question to the norm. And the question I ask is, how do I get 0% reactions in skin of color? This question has never been asked before. The question asked before was always, how do I get the result that I want? But for skin of color, it doesn't work that way, because if you just try and get the result that you want, but actually you're causing more damage to the skin and getting more hyperpigmentation from what you're doing, then it wasn't worth it. And that question really is an essential question for our whole community. I don't want to be the only one asking this question. I want this to become the norm. I know I've caused, just by asking that question, because you're questioning industry standards, automatically you're going to cause friction and tension, and you're going to upset some people who rely on the industry standard. But I'm hoping that the more we teach, the more we educate, the more that you then go to your practitioners and you know far more, the less irritation, the less PIH, the less hyperpigmentation we're getting in our whole skin of color community. So I'm hoping any backlash I get is worth it and hopefully won't last for much longer. But today's video, I think, has been really essential. I think this has really impacted me and I want to talk about it because I feel like if I've gone through stress and the effects it's had on my skin and my self-esteem, how I look at myself in the mirror and how I think people are going to judge me based on my skin, then many other people have gone through the same thing. I know 2020 was just literally the worst year ever for that the majority of us can even remember in our lifetimes. Some people had it worse than others, but ultimately we all went through stress, we all went through trauma, we were all, it was terrible. And so I want to talk about what's happened to your skin in that time frame, but also how we mitigate it and how we stop it from happening again, because knowledge is power. I firmly believe that. So let's protect our skin. Let's dive right in. So first of all, what's happening when you're stressed on a physiological level? When you're stressed, you release more cortisol and more adrenaline. Now, that used to be great, for evolutionary purposes, because if you saw rustling in the bushes and you thought that that was a lion, you would want to have adrenaline making you run in the opposite direction. However, for modern day, this cortisol and adrenaline is bad news for multiple reasons, because it's chronic. It lasts for a long time. It's not just one fight or flight incident. That stress can last months. So what happens is when your cortisol goes up, your sebum production goes up. When your sebum production goes up, you clog the pores. You create an anaerobic environment. P. acnes, the bacteria will replicate and you get acne. A study was conducted on medical students between the ages of 22 and 24 years old, and there was a positive correlation between stress and acne severity. I mean, I know firsthand, the end of last year was really difficult for me, and I kept having heart palpitations. I wasn't sleeping, my hair was falling out, and I was looking in the mirror and it was as if something had attacked my face. I still had acne coming down my face, and this just rare for me. I'd get my odd, pimple the week before my period, but this was like, I never even got acne during teenage years. Like, that was the level of stress that I went through, but also how it manifested on my face. I just remember my mum and dad seeing me and they just went, what happened? Like, how bad can it be for your face to look like this? I mean, I'm sure they said it in a loving way, but I mean, talk about hurting my self-esteem more. So that was, it's one of those things that you can see immediately on someone if they've had a change in their life circumstances, if anyone's passed away in their circle, or, they have financial issues or relationship issues or whatever issues, you can actually tell immediately from someone's face if it's severe enough. So acne is one of the ways that it manifests on our skin. So the next way it can affect your skin is the stratum corneum. So that's the top layer of skin. One of the main purposes is that it's a barrier to prevent transepidermal water loss, so i.e. water evaporation from the skin. However, when you're stressed, this barrier function is compromised, and guess what happens? You have more water evaporation, your skin is drier. A dry skin means that it's not a healing environment. We need hydration in order for our skin to repair and renew. If that's not happening, then every single skin condition that you have flares up. So whether that's eczema, whether that's, dermatitis of one sort or another, lichen planus, you name it, any skin condition that you have tends to flare up and get worse during times of stress. And that's one of the reasons for it. The other one is melasma. Melasma can actually be made worse by stress for this reason as well. So it's just like the gift that keeps on giving. It just doesn't end. The next gift of stress is the gift of aging. So what happens is, first of all, you're screwing up your face a lot more. And so you're creating more lines that weren't there before. You now have dry skin because of what we've already discussed, which makes your wrinkles worse. And on top of that, the protein content changes of the skin. And so your skin is not as elastic as it used to be. It doesn't bounce back as fast. So all these things combined equals you look older. You just look older after a big bout of stress. The next gift is hair loss. So this happened to me with every exam I've ever taken. I would wake up and on my pillow would be hair. And usually it would be from the top of my head. That's really where hair thinning tends to take place. You can't even really hide it. So literally it's in your face. And the reason is the way that your hair grows, the cycle can change. And you can go through something called telogen effluvium, where you actually change the number of hair follicles that can grow hair. And this, over a couple of months period, you're going to start seeing hair thinning. The next thing you may have noticed is graying of your hair. Now, the reason for this is that cortisol actually reduces the number of melanocytes that are being produced from the stem cells. And guess what? Melanocytes are the cells that give color, not only to your skin, but also to your hair. So during COVID, people had more gray hair, not only because they couldn't get to the hairdresser, which none of us could, but also because of stress. Stress is not our friend. Stress is the enemy for our skin and for our beauty and for our happiness. So really, every video I talk about the practical solutions to manage the situation, whether it's a routine, whether it's product suggestions. So really, this part of the video, I want to talk about how to cope with stress. And I know I'm the last person to teach about this topic. I'm the most overstressed, overworked person. It's all self-inflicted. I worry about every single thing that could possibly go wrong. And then I manifest it in my brain and I become stressed about something that's probably never going to happen. So I am one of those stressed people who tends to show it on my face. But in 2021, I have decided that I'm going to learn how to manage my stress. I think up until this point, stress has always helped me, whether it's been an exam, whether it's to push through the pain barrier to whatever it is, For example, during pregnancy, I never took any maternity leave. After I had my babies, I went straight back to work. It was literally, I just never stopped. I just kept pushing through the pain, and stress helped me push through that pain. It became almost like a winning formula for me. It became a way for me to succeed and to achieve my dreams. But I feel like at this stage of my life, at 37 years old, it's not a winning formula anymore. In fact, it's doing the opposite. It's aging me. It shortens the happiness cycle in your life. It's actually something I really need to unlearn. It helped me in my younger years. At this stage in life, I wouldn't recommend it, and it's not a winning formula I would teach my children either. So 2021, I decided that I'm going to live with intention and I'm going to de-stress my life. So just a few changes that I've made. Last year, I worked from 6 in the morning until midnight every day. I would be responding to DMs on my Instagram till 1, 2 in the morning. I just didn't want to let one person down. And that was just ridiculous. That just had such a toll on me because I wasn't sleeping. If you're on your phone until 1, 2 in the morning, those 4 hours of sleep are completely interrupted. You had no time to switch off. So I've decided I'm going to keep normal working hours, and I'm going to leave my phone in a different room when I sleep, so that I'm not even tempted to go on and start responding. I decided that I'm going to keep up with my running. I think running is the only thing that really saved me last year. You know, I run 3 to 5 days a week, and not long. I mean, I go for maybe half an hour, and I just put my music in my ears, and I feel like I'm dancing in a club. Like, my husband watches me run and he thinks it's so funny. It's like literally, I'm like punching the air. I think I'm raving while I'm running down my road. But it's like my time to be happy. So that's really important for me. And going for long walks with audiobooks. So a couple of books I listened to that I absolutely recommend. Michelle Obama's book was fantastic. Before I listened to her book, I really didn't know much about her. I didn't really have any opinions on her. But wow, she knocked my socks off. Phenomenal lady, really inspiring. In fact, I remember her talking about her miscarriage in her book, or her difficulty with conceiving in her book, and that allowed me to talk about my difficulty with conceiving my second child. So she was such an inspiration in so many different ways. I mean, that's one small way. The other book I've just finished reading is Phil Knight, Shoe Dog. One thing that I've learned from that book was the bigger you get, the more of a target you have on your back. I mean, he literally had, so he was a founder of Nike. He talked about his whole life story. It was such an honest book. I loved it. And again, it encourages you to talk about all your own failures and all your own mistakes that you've made. And I love talking about my mistakes. Like, it's I probably talk about it too much. Yeah, so that's one thing that made me realize, actually, the more visible I become on YouTube or on Instagram, I can expect, you know, more negativity to come with that, because you do have more of a target on your back. So listening to his story for the last 40, 50 years and him going through it, he literally had his competitors call the FBI on him, and just all sorts of things happened. They changed the tax law just to penalize Nike. I mean, oh gosh. So, you know, that was another learning point. But what it is just listening to other people's going through their trials, their tribulations, their trauma normalizes any pain or trauma that you're going through. So that really helps me, listening to biographies. I also think it's really important to talk about stress. So one of my good friends, Nisha, is a coach, and I would literally, at the time anything happened, I would call her, talk it through, and she'd distill, you know, what I was most fearful of and what I was worried about, and, you know, how to manage that. So I would highly recommend talk to a friend that really understands you and what you're trying to achieve, and can talk you through the problems. Sometimes you can't see the wood from the trees when so much happens to you all at once. So she's a great coach. I'll put her details down below as well for you if you don't have, you know, somebody else to talk to. The other thing I thought of is really key for me to keep positive people close to me, and anyone that like saps my energy or tries to make me feel a way that I don't like to feel, I love them from a distance. I actually learned that from Vex King. So this is the other book that I'm loving, Good Vibes, Good Life from Vex. He's a good friend as well, and absolutely, he's one of the wisest people that I know, and I literally sit there like highlighting his book. So that's another book that I would definitely recommend, just to talk you through problems. And we all go through problems. We are all going through stress. There is no one who has escaped the stress. And not just of 2020, I'm talking about lifetime of stress. I think it's something that we don't discuss enough. And I think I also want to talk about everything that goes wrong in my life. I want to be open about it. I want to talk about it, because if I've gone through it, a lot of other people would have gone through it too. You know, we're not alone. This is the one thing that connects all of us, is our pain and our stress. But I don't want it manifesting on our skin. And so I want, ideally, I hope this video has been helpful, because these are my personal tips that have helped me. And I hope that if it's practically helped me, that it will practically help you too. Not just, you know, a mantra that I'm putting on my Instagram. These are actual things that I do to get through any trauma that I'm going through. Lastly, I just want to say thank you so much, all of you. The amount of love that I've received from our Skin of Color family is, I think, one of the main things that got me through last year. It's probably one of the things I'm most proud of last year. And I hope I make you proud, and I hope that I can continue to serve you the way you deserve to be served. Thank you so much. Sending you all my love.